Hello. Welcome back to our newest series. We're calling it "Does It Suck?"
I'm sorry, I still laugh every time.
All right. So in this particular series, we're just going to be watching vampire movies and rating it from a scale to suck to bite.
It's your guess on what's good and what's not, I guess.
We'll still give like a numerical score just because that's our shtick. And might as well keep it there because "does it suck" is a yes or no is going to be confusing either way.
You know what makes me happy is to know that at least 3 people are going to laugh at that joke, and they're all in this room right now. So,
hey, make content you want to watch is the important bit.
that's a good point. That's a good point. So,
in this particular one, we figured we might as well start classic with Bram Stoker's Dracula. We could have gone to, I think, Curse of Dracula is the first one that Christopher Lee was in. We could have gone that classic. We could have gone Nosferatu classic. But I think for our age range...
Yeah, but the 1992
Yeah,
Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
It's probably the good place to start.
I think you were the oldest and probably could have actually gone to go see it in the theater.
I think I did.
I would have been 9.
I would have been 10.
I would have been 18.
Yeah.
I do think
I
saw
think my
this in the
parents
theater.
said, even though I could watch it in the privacy of our home, notice letting a 10-year-old see titties in the theater.
I mean, it's titties. You got them. You know what
Not
they
really
look.
at 10. Well, kind of at 10. Maybe. When did I don't know.
Musings for some other place that's not going publicly on the internet, I imagine.
You're not allowed a 10-year-old with boobs. Comment. No, don't.
No,
Don't.
Please don't.
YouTube's going to strike that one with lightning. Okay. Kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Yes.
Anyways.
That's a joke. It sucks.
Yeah.
It totally
We give
bites.
that a 0 out of 10. Wait. Sucks and bites. It means that one of y'all liked the joke and one of you didn't. And I forget what the rating is again. Anyways.
We'll give a numerical score just to keep in tradition. And then
Numerical score for that joke. Hold on.
If you want to do that one.
It's a 0.
I concur.
I'm going to give it a 10. Just because you have to amuse yourself sometimes.
All right. So, Bram Stoker's Dracula. I guess we could start with Lance. If you were to give Bram Stoker's Dracula a score, 0 to 10, whereabouts would you put it?
Y'all are guessing me.
Yes.
So, thinking about it before I rewatched the movie, I was trying to figure out where I was. And then we just rewatched it, and now I know where I'm at. So I'm going to give this movie a 5.
Oh, wow.
I was close.
I went too generous.
I thought you'd give it a 6.
No, it's so...
Because of titties.
So back in the day... like when I was really kind of like pondering it, it was like, what would I have given it back in the day when I watched it? It was like, oh, that movie is probably like a solid 7, and then rewatching it now, it's like, there's some goofy shit in there. And it's not just some of the effects that don't hold up.
Yeah.
But like some of the acting.
Mainly from
Whoa.
a young Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
So there were a couple times, this was not too enough far removed from back in the day when he was Ted
Theodore Logan.
Or Point Break.
Yeah,
Point Break.
It's a little Point Breaky.
Yeah,
where he's kind of I'm doing an English accent because I said bloody.
Well, I mean, I think that was the thing that really bothered me is like the entire time he's on screen, like he's seeing some weird shit, and he's still kind of like, oh, like his eyes don't even like get. He's just like,
yeah, like Dracula's behind you shaving. You're just kind of like.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like
emote.
The very first thing that happens is the fucking, like the carriage pulls up and then like weird thing is like, and then like shows this super elongated arm. And then it goes through like this camera trick to make it look like the arm picked his ass up and put him in the carriage. And it's kind of like, neat.
Whoa.
and then when he hears the wolves, you see the wolves running on the side of the cart. And like
he hadn't taken the pill yet, Lance.
Well, I mean, but the wolves are like running alongside of the cart, and he's like looking, and then he leans out to see the wolves. And in that shot, on one side was mountain and cliff, and it's like, where the fuck are the dogs? And like it shows the camera looking down, and the wheel is about 2 inches from the edge of the cliff, and he's just like, Cool.
Interesting.
So again, this is why you gave it a 5,
Yes.
not to get into spoilers.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Amber, what about you?
He was not prepared for me to be next, apparently.
Okay.
Well, so the funny part is that I forgot our own fucking thing, and I gave my
Oh, you
5.
gave
I put my rating on here. I'm sorry, I was not ready.
What did I give it? A 5.
So,
Such a memorable movie, I had to write down my own scorecard. So, unlike Lance here, this is actually one of my all-time favorite movies, one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and I've always been very high on it. I like to rewatch it multiple times here. I would easily give this a 9.
No, that went off.
Hey,
Hey, don't cheat.
you totally cheated.
so as you kept talking, I had it at 7, and you're like, I really like this movie. I was like,
Oh, when we sat down, she said it was one of her all-time favorite movies.
yeah, no,
No, it's one
So-
of my all-time favorites. I've
I
always
defaulted at 8.
It's one of my favorites. It's not gonna ever change. Some of the CG doesn't hold up, but so much of the prosthetics are great.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman's great. Winona Ryder's great. It speaks to me. I am a not so secret goth vampire girl at times. It's one of my favorite genres, and I think this is just iconic of the genre, and it kind of is the foundation of a lot of my own personal writings when it comes to vampire lore.
Yes, as far as vampire lore, we can definitely get into that a little bit later.
So Nick,
Um,
what would you give the Bram Stoker's Dracula starring Keanu Reeves? Oh,
It's plus side Keanu Reeves was a little light in this movie.
yes.
In the beginning, and then a couple scenes near the end where his hair's starting to gray.
Yeah.
You know, I was waffling between a 5 and a 6. I think I'm more of a 5. Because I probably had more fun when we were sitting here together watching it, because we know we were throwing in Keanu Reeves jokes. But if I was sitting,
I wasn't far off. I thought you'd give it a 6. I thought maybe a little bit
So
higher.
are you going to stay with?
It was a 5.
A 5.
I think it's a 5 for like as the movie itself. Sitting down and watching it with friends is probably more of a 6, because we know we had fun time watching it.
So-
But that's us, not necessarily the movie.
So I'm going to pose a new thing to our watchers out there.
Our watcher out there.
Our watcher right here.
Ironically enough, that fits in the vampire theme, the watcher.
Yeah.
Spooky nooches. Every time I guess a wrong number, if it's off by 1, take a shot. If it's off by 2,
No.
2 shots.
No,
I
no,
watch
no.
this a lot of time while I'm at work. No.
Shot of water then. But, so, because you're like, I give it a 5 or 6. I was like, oh my god, I might actually get one. I'll give it a 5. Fuck.
I was waffling.
Yeah,
Like
no.
when we were sitting there watching, I'm like, this might be about a 6, but I think a lot of that was what we were doing, not necessarily the movie itself.
And
Lamp
see, and
running
that's
it.
one of the things is, I know you've talked before, like sometimes some of your 10s are really kind of campy movies that you
Oh,
can
yeah.
do this kind of stuff with. I feel the same. There's a lot that's just not great about this movie, but the stuff that I love about it does hold up so highly for me personally.
Yeah. Which I definitely think, like ratings is, I think people put an objective thing on it. But it's
No, it's completely
absolutely subjective.
It's not like
And-
I'm grading your paper based off the movie,
Yeah,
which is
and-
still in a way subjective, but that gets into the whole problem I had with sometimes essay writing.
Yeah. Well, I also think people tend to throw out 10s and 1s far too freely.
Yeah.
Like you go to a review score, and people are like, this movie, 1, it had a thing I don't like.
When
it.
I
Like, that's
read
not-
books
that's not
and
what
I
a
have
1
to
is for.
review them, if I'm trying to be nice to like a fellow indie author, I might give it a 5 because it posts up. But I will typically cap out at 4s most of the time, because I feel like if I'm going to go through as a prospective reader into reading something, I'm going to look at the 4s reviews, I'm going to look at the 3s, I'm going to look
Yeah.
at the 2s. The 1s and 5s are normally outliers where people are just putting a number to put a number.
If they're giving the highest score or the lowest score, I tend to skip over those ones.
You tend to get good in-depth detail from those middling scores, even as high up as a 4 on a 1 to 5 scale. But
If you're reading like a 3 or a 4 on a 5-star scale, those people are going to give you like critiques of why they're docking at a point or something like that, and I think that's worthwhile.
yeah, and we have. I don't think you guys have watched a 10 movie for me yet.
For you,
Yeah.
okay. I think I've given a 10 once.
And on the
I know
next
it's-
episode, we're going to be reviewing 27 Dresses.
You think I'd give that a 10?
I know you'd give that a 10. You've watched that movie 10 times, 7 times.
I thought you would have recommended Legend, but you know.
Well, yeah, but like I'm going with like, okay, so let's see. Movies that Amber would give a 10. 27 Dresses, The Devil Wears Prada.
That's an excellent movie.
Is it a 10 movie?
Yeah.
Does that have to do 10 things just because you could hold the 10 things?
10 things I hate about you?
Yeah.
10
How to lose a guy in 10 days?
How to lose a thing in 10 things?
How to lose a thing in 10 things?
Private joke. Amber, you got that one.
And Tim, if he's watching.
Tim
Oh,
will
Tim.
get that because
Yeah,
he's the one he's the originator of that
Yeah,
joke.
that's Tim's joke. I just globbed onto it.
I mean, honestly, I don't know if I've given anything a 10.
Is your chicken?
10.
How
If
hungry
you- or if
is
you
your
get anything a
chicken?
10.
I would give that a 10.
Huh?
Or if you've given anything a 10.
Well,
Kind of said that.
yeah,
I'll give it a 10.
sorry. I give it a Tim. I stay away from the Aaron. Let's see. I don't think I've ever given anything on this channel a 0 or a 10.
No. I don't think
I don't think you've given it.
I think the lowest I've given was a 3, and that was for Top Gun.
Yeah.
Just because I think you can go watch the Top Gun one. Another one where I think I'm an outlier for that particular one. So
I'm the outlier here.
I can't even remember what I gave that one. I think I gave it a 7.
I think you gave it a 7. I gave it, I think, a strong 8.
I think that's like our wheelhouse, or at least that's my wheelhouse. I'm like 6 to 8.
Yeah.
Something has got a really big, like Transformers the movie. That's a 10. But we'll never review that here. So
It's
Well,
it'll be
wait,
the
wait.
thing.
Are
if
we
you-
talking
if you
about the
remember.
1985 animated
Yes.
one? Or are you talking about Michael Bay?
No.
I could give my first 0 if we did that one.
Oh, you wouldn't give Michael Bay's Transformer.
It's
The
not.
first one, not a 0. You wouldn't give that one a
For
0.
the fact that it's got Peter Cullen's voice in it.
And it said it had the Transformers sound effect, which gave us a level because Tim bet you that it would be in there, and you said it wouldn't, and it was. So we all got a level in D&D.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
Yeah, this is how much nerds we are.
That's why Vorpal bit you with a zombie. Kidding. Anyways,
Is he though?
so
do we want to get into spoiler
So do we want to do
territory
spoilers first, or do we want to talk about vampire lore?
Well, I think if
first?
we start talking about vampire lore, that's gonna
segue
say what's essentially in
Yeah.
the movie. So I mean, if you've not seen
Bram Stoker's
Dracula, you've had 30 years.
Yeah.
30 years.
yeah, you got no one to blame but yourself on this one. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it's not streaming anywhere seems to be a bit of an issue.
It's a good thing I own the DVD and the Blu-ray.
It's a good thing
If
I have friends that have
if-
Plex servers.
But I own it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have to watch it illegally. We own it.
It's not illegal. It's on Plex.
Is it though?
No, it's not illegal. People buy movies and they stick it on their Plex servers.
And you pay the company to rent them. All right. So, I've come up with like a little list of, I guess, vampire tropes
Yes.
that we could start.
So, if you don't know what a vampire is, this is also a spoiler. So you may want to just tune out right now because we're going to talk about what vampires should be. So
That's not even necessarily a should, because like this has no
That's-
bearing on
yeah.
how good a vampire thing is. It's just like when you sit down and someone says, "Oh, this movie's got vampires in it."
Yeah.
These might be some of a checklist you would go down to kind of go like, how traditional is this vampire? Because I
Right.
mean, you could watch. I think there's only like one thing on here, maybe, and that's only if you're talking about like traditional like European vampires would be a blood dependency. I mean,
Yep.
if you're talking about a movie with like psychic vampires or like Jiangxi and those like little ones where the head separates and all the organs come out, like the Vietnamese vampires, that's a different breed.
fuck are you talking about?
Never seen.
You've
those
never
before?
seen that they're like when you go into other cultures, their vampires are vastly different than the European vampires that you are accustomed to.
Yeah, I can never.
I don't know much about them.
Yeah, I can never remember the name of it, but I think it's Thai or Vietnamese or something.
Isn't
like
there
that.
something called a yokelol? Am I remember that correctly?
I don't know. But there's a woman who like separates her head from her body, and the organs come with it, and then she leaves her body behind, and then the head floats into people's rooms and drinks their blood while they're
So
asleep.
she's a floating organ head?
Yep. And how you kill it is by killing the body while the head is separated from it, and they're like that culture's vampires. But that's not.
Yeah, and I think Nick and I earlier talked about how I think we believe it Chinese vampires are vastly different as well, but I don't remember much about them, unfortunately.
I know they've got some different things that I think is carried over to some of the traditional vampire ones too. Like if you're getting chased by a Jiangshi and you want to get away, you throw grains of rice on the ground because they are compulsed to count.
Yeah.
So if you throw all the grains on the ground, they have to stop and count every single grain of rice before they can continue going.
That is the worst. But are they speed counters?
No, I don't know. But
I mean,
OCD is a bitch.
If it was count Von count, he'd get through those real quick.
Okay.
One rice. 2
grains of rice.
That guy's gonna be there till dawn. He's fucked.
Yeah, he is.
I don't know. Maybe not. It depends upon what vampire story you're listening to or watching.
I put blood dependency is number 1 because that's generally what you expect with a vampire. And this one, he seems to be quite dependent on blood.
Yes. So much so when he condemns other people to eternal undeath, he condemns them to a life of drinking blood.
Human blood.
The yokel is this tree-looking.
Oh yeah, okay. It's a.
I don't know why that popped up in my head, but it did.
Because you're weird.
It's No, it's not. It's the neutral evil demon things. Not a Mesoloth, but something similar to that.
Well, it looks like a sentient tree monster.
Well, while you're look up Thai vampire, maybe that'll, or maybe Vietnamese vampire, one of those two.
But we'll continue.
I also have immortality, and specifically like agelessness. You tend to expect them to be doomed forever to continue eternally.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's many vampire ones. Maybe through our watchings we'll find some vampire movies that don't adhere to this particular trope, but that seems to be the big draw of being a vampire.
One thing I've noticed is typically with the immortality, the blood dependency tends to be highly linked to the immortality.
Yeah.
It's a dependency, like an interdependency between them, because they don't necessarily die if they don't, but like everyone
they might go feral,
or they age, they become more skeletal. Lack of blood can cause them to, because oftentimes with the immortality comes like in some a lot of times comes with some beauty or just
it seemed like that in
agelessness
in this one too. Like he was kind of white, pale, and ghoulish, and then
the more blood
he was like drinking on
Lucy.
That's her name. And then kind of he became more youthful and
vigorous
and oldman looking.
Vigorous.
Ironically, the more he drank, the more oldman he became.
So
and less old.
So I have some. So a Jiangshi.
Yeah.
Is a Chinese hopping vampire.
Yep. Do you know why they hop? So, like that in their culture, when they would transport bodies, they would transport them at night, and they would transport them via bamboo. You'd have someone on the front carrying bamboo on the shoulder, and someone in the back with bamboo on the shoulder, and then they'd put the corpses underneath the armpit on the bamboo, and when they walked, the chutes would jump. So sometimes when you would look outside at night, you would see a corpse jumping down the street.
Interesting. That makes a lot more sense than floating organ monster.
I don't know where that one comes from. I mean, but I also don't know that. I know a tiny bit about Jiangxi.
How horrifying is that? If you're running from a Chinese vampire and you look back, and because they're super fast, they're like. I mean, that is. Oh my god, vampires on pogo sticks. That is just. That's not cool, man. That's not cool.
Underneath.
That sounds like a Pee Wee Herman kind of vampire to me.
Well, he did play a vampire.
What? No, he didn't.
When did he play a vampire?
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, okay.
So that little clip I showed you. That was probably one of the best parts of that entire movie.
All right. Next up, I put physical prowess was what I named it, for just kind of that strength, speed, and endurance.
Yeah, that's typical.
I think the top 3 are what I usually see when I see vampire movies and stuff like that, or things with vampires in them.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. And I think Dracula's got that, although they didn't really show too much of him like throwing people around or anything like that. He was but
he did do it, and so did Lucy when he was showed up to kill Lucy.
Yeah, and they've also shown like him catching the thing and having it all this sudden up here, so they imply that he's really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see, it was little things like that like I had never noticed that before, but I loved how they did that. And that's why the movie is like middle of the road for me, because there's a lot of stuff where I'm just like, whatever. My main rating is because Anthony Hopkins in that movie, stellar. And fucking Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
He's wonderful.
Yes.
And I love Carrie Eloise, but he's terrible.
He really of all of Lucy Suitors, he's ostensibly the most important because he's the one who gets engaged to her, and he has the least amount of screen time of all of her suitors.
He just kind of shows up like, "Hey, Wesley," and then he's gone. And then he's back and it's like, "I'm married," or
Quincy and
okay.
I can't remember the other guy's name.
The cowboy guy?
Jason or Jake or Jacob, whatever his name was, who was also the guy at the sanitarium.
Okay.
Quincy was the cowboy.
Okay.
The guy who was the doctor at the sanitarium who knew Van Helsing. Got so much more screen time than the guy who was supposed to marry Lucy.
Yeah. And in particular, the guy at the sanitarium.
So I just looked up the cowboy's name in the movie. His name was Rustler Hot Dogman. So, I mean...
His name was Quincy? Well, that was his character's name.
No, I think his character ate at Quincy's.
No, his name was Quincy.
All right, moving on. And next
that was for all my other 40-year-old guys out there.
Next up, I have magical prowess, and I put that for like they tend to have either the enchanting gaze or
something hypnotic.
Yeah, or just even the ability to make like humans your thralls kind of too. Like you stare at them and just kind of like do all these things I want you to do.
And then that was clearly apparent multiple times. Typically, like obviously Dracula had some of that, but I think they showed more of it with the sirens, as I'm going to call them, the 3 vampire sirens that lived at Dracula's castle.
And you also get a sense of it too with Renfield as well, because like he was originally going there to sell him property, and like he got enthralled by Dracula and started calling him master and eating bugs and all that kind of stuff.
So I have a theory.
That's why Renfield is now like a title for people who become like him.
Yeah,
it's great.
I have a theory. So y'all brought up about the whole as he drank blood, he got like better looking and everything like that. So I feel like with the magical prowess that it's not like. So he went through like 5 different phases. He looked like werewolf monster. He looked like bat monster. He looked like old tithead guy. He looked like young fucking, aristocrat vampire guy. I feel like tithead was what he looks like. When he was in monster form, it's like that was his bestial nature coming out. But then when they saw him as like young aristocratic, like I think that was just him glamoring people. I think he always looks like. I think he always looks like tithead.
The only reason why I don't think it was always a glamour is they take painstakingly time to show young Gary Oldman bursting out of the box when they first get to London after he's gotten a hold of Lucy the first time.
I mean, it could also be,
and he burst out and he seems young and vigorous. So
I mean, that could also be. I mean, we've attributed it to blood drinking, but it could be proximity to the woman that matches his old love.
Yeah, but then
kind of like reinvigorating.
When he got close to Mina when he was back in Transylvania, then he should have like burst out looking like young Gary Oldman again. Yeah. But instead, he showed up as old tithead. So.
All right. I put nigh unkillable there for generally the bunch of things you have to go through in order to kill vampires usually. Because sometimes stakes in the heart is all it takes. But a lot of times you have to stake them in the heart. You got to cut off their head. You got to burn their body. You got to go through this
stuff their mouth with wafers.
Yeah, through this whole rigmarole to stop them from coming back.
So I'll just put this out there as a quick. I don't think they're nigh unkillable. You need 2 conditions: show up during the day, and know where the coffin is.
Yep.
And that's like I feel like somebody have the balls to put up an hour and 45-minute movie about vampires, and in the first 5 minutes kill the fucking vampire, and then just have like Pee Wee Herman doing the fucking dance for the next hour and 30 minutes.
No.
Like someone do that.
No.
Somebody.
Well, it's generally so like in order to kill me, you don't have to meet conditions. You just have to like. Oh, I shot him in the chest. Oh, he's dying. Okay, we got it.
Yeah, if you shoot a vampire in the chest.
Shoot a vampire in the chest, he's gonna be like, you shot me.
This is aggravating, but I'll get better.
Yeah, but I mean, to kill a vampire, all you have to do is literally go. It's dark outside. Let's wait a few more minutes.
But that's not always the case. That's not always the case. The proof of it is the movie we just watched. They are not weak to sunlight to the point that it burns or kills them from exposure, because he walks around in the daylight, and they make note of saying that the vampires are only weakened power-wise during the day. They can walk about perfectly fine like everybody else. It's other...
I feel like it's convenience. Like, I feel like when I think vampire, I think burns in sunlight, goes out at night.
Well, yeah, that's why I wanted to make this little list.
Yeah. Sorry, please continue with this.
But not everything's going to hit that. I mean, there are some vampires that supposedly sparkle.
Well, I think there's even
But I don't know if I would call them vampires.
I mean, there's even like some vampires where all they seem to do is like they have to drink blood, and that's it. They get like nothing else. And those are more rare, but it's still a vampire movie.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I didn't put Transylvanian on here, but... So, after 9 kill, I'll put shape-shifting, kind of in line with magical prowess. A lot of times I have
the ability to shift into different animals, or maybe different forms altogether.
Piles of rats.
Yeah.
Mists.
Yeah, swarms of bats, too. I've seen them do swarms of bats.
I just want to know what the original rules are. Like, just show me what the original rules are.
So the problem is that vampire lore, at least European vampire lore, which is what, as Americans, we mostly know, their lore is based off of ancient stories from various countries that have become an amalgam.
That have become jammed together. And, and it's kind of like pulling different myths and kind of jamming together.
Yeah. Like, if you were to go around and start compiling Native American vampire lore, it's going to be vastly different than what European vampire lore is. And there is not Native American vampire lore. I don't personally know it, but they do have their own creatures akin to vampires.
And I mean, even the Greeks kind of have them with the Maenads. You know, the Baccarat, whatever they're called, Dionysus girls, the ones that like get drunk and tear people apart. There's talk of them like eating flesh and drinking blood and stuff too. And having fangs and claws and tearing people apart. I mean, they could be a progenitor of a version of a vampire myth too, very easily.
All right.
I put distinctive appearance just as a catch-all for like fangs, pale, long nails, wears black.
So the goth kids I seen out in the Walmart. Got it.
Yeah.
So Nick, do you have something you need to tell us?
Nope. All right, moving on.
What's in that cup?
I've never seen you during the day.
What are you drinking over there, buddy?
That's also very true. So coffin dependency. I put for sleeps in coffin, or maybe also maybe requires dirt, either grave dirt, maybe dirt from their homeland. That one comes and goes.
Yeah, that one I've not seen as the earth. I've not seen as prevalently in pop culture, but I know it is.
So I've seen it twice.
It was there in Fright Night.
Fright Night, and then this one.
Well, I mean, Vampire Hunter D does involve Earth, but he's technically a Dhampir, so he's not beholden to the strictest of rules of that. In certain game systems, I do believe that there is a flaw you can take that would require that, or I think if you're of a certain age, you might need that, just because if you're an older vampire, you might be
certain game systems. If you hit Count Dracula in the tip with a morning star, you hit the team.
No, you have to hit him in the head. It's like if you're playing the original Castlevania and you're whipping his little cloak, he's not doing anything. He just kind of stands near you, opens up his cloak, and 3 little fireballs come out. And you have to jump over him and smack him in the face.
You always know if he disappears from the left, he's going right.
Which, if you think about nigh unkillable, like how many times has the Belmont family killed Dracula, and he just keeps going right back.
That's true. Some asshole keeps removing the steak.
Yeah, that too. So far, I think all these have been in this particular Dracula movie. I put monstrous / predatory as both kind of the form, but also just kind of the
stalk people, linger outside their window or their friend's window, staring at them.
I kind of put that as a catch-all for creepy behavior. Like if you're walking down the street and there's just a guy walking behind you. I guess like also in Fright Night when he was going behind Eddie, he was hunting / stalking.
Yeah, that's true.
Or you could have it where the girl that you just saved, her perfume bottle or whatever was in that medicine bottle, and then she's like, "See ya, you're kind of creepy," and then you appear ahead of her easily, and you're like, I still think you're really pretty and you shouldn't be walking alone.
Yes. So this catch-all is also there for some problematic behavior. But, I mean, just in general, them being dependent on blood and seeing people as prey.
I mean, they do it all the time. It's the...
Yes, it is a vampire trope.
Okay. Yeah.
Hence why he's
So far, you're 10 for 10.
I put tragic figure because a lot of times in vampire movies...
That's the one that I feel like it depends, I think, on what the viewpoint of the vampire is. Mm-hmm. So in like a movie like Fright Night, the vampire's not so tragic. Not the main, not Jerry the vampire. Well, he was that his name, Jerry?
Jerry Dandridge.
Well, there was also the fact that, I mean, his love died and that's kind of what I mean by like tragic. Not necessarily tragedy like you feel for him, but in kind of that, since they live such a long time, they tend to carry all this baggage. And
yeah, but like I don't feel like in Fright Night you really feel like he's got baggage and he's a tragic figure of any sort. You don't necessarily feel sorry for him. He doesn't feel like, so sometimes when you have the villain is a vampire and you're hunting him, the tragic nature of the vampire, which is a trope and clearly is the proof of the point of Dracula. Yeah. It's not always prevalent in others because
I think you get it a little bit in The Interview with the Vampire. It's not Lestat, because Lestat's the big one, right?
Lestat is Tom Cruise. Well, in the 90s version, Tom Cruise was Lestat. Louis is very tragic because his family's died and he's all despondent and alone, and then also
the girl.
Mary Jane, what's her name?
Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst, yeah. She could
I
be.
want more.
Oh, no. I mean, she's certainly very tragic, and she's the reason why there's always rules about don't make children into vampires, because not only does it cause, issues with the fact that they never age, and then it makes people go, why is this little 7-year-old 25 years later?
You moved down the street like a couple years ago and noticed your kid's still 7. It's like, no, nothing's wrong here.
Yeah, come over tonight and she'll explain it to you.
But also, it was something that I think I brought up to you guys when you guys watched Let Me In and Let the Right One In, is what happens to somebody who's stuck in a child's body for eternity. Yeah. So that's where you give that.
Because she was still childlike, but incapable of growing up.
Yeah, so it does something, I think, to the psyche over time, which is very apparent in
We need to add another movie. We need to add another movie to the vampire list then, because I just thought one. So the baby from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, has...
He's ageless. No, he's just got a condition. He's just that. He was drawn that way. He's not bad. He was just drawn that way.
That excuse work for Jessica.
It works for everything. It's a catch-all. The next one I just titled Randy in honor of Randy Giles.
Yes, and I do think that is typical of many.
Yes, I think
they're horny.
They throw horny.
Horny. I can't think of any vampires named Randy.
No,
horny. Randy for horny.
I was kidding.
Go ahead and think of a horny vampire, and your list will be about as long as there are for vampires, I think.
Yeah, no, I think even in Dracula Dead and Loving It, they're very horny.
I still think my favorite version of the whole horny vampire thing is still the whole, their body's dead. They can't have sex because there's no blood moving through their body, so they can't get a boner. So it's like any kind of sexing is happening like in your mind, like when they're doing the, Jedi shit to you.
I actually like the World of Darkness rule where you have to expend blood, because basically blood, like you consume blood, and so your character in that would have blood points, and you can expend your blood points to simulate more humanity, which includes having sex, being able to have bodily functions.
Which,
for sex.
That also really kind of depends on what you pull from too, because in some things like Vampire in Her Day, you've got natural born Dampirs, and then you've got things like Blade, where you can't naturally make a Dampier. It's because mom was pregnant while he was bit, and he got part of the vampiric taint and came out like a half-blood.
I like that.
Yeah, but that's
but you have well, Vampire Hunter is just weird because I think you can breed true vampires as well. Vampires can interbreed to create more vampires naturally, not just.
It's anime though; they always get really fucking weird in the anime.
Although I think the girl who thought she was a pureblood vampire turned out to be a vampire as well.
I don't remember. I need to rewatch it.
There's the dark-haired girl who found out that her mother was human, but she didn't know that until like late in the process. But I don't know if her mother was human and got turned into a vampire and then she was born, or if she was born.
I don't remember a lot about that movie. I just remember he had a hand that talked shit and ate dirt.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. No, that was like, God, I watched that anime so much as a kid that it's burned in here. This is why we have a bust of D in our house, Lance.
Yeah. And that's back in the day when they would play anime on Saturday mornings, and they'd call it Japanime.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Or even Japanimation, like.
Yeah, and I
just straight up called it Japanimation.
See, there was Akira.
Sorry, problematic.
Vampire Hunter D, Lensman, Venus Wars that got played some, but some of these were ones that they played at night more than anything. And there was another one, but Vampire Hunter D was the one I always looked out for.
I like that one a lot.
See, I want to watch Hellsing. I've heard that one's very good.
Okay, I've not seen that one. I've only seen like bits of. I think I've seen bits of it, but I don't remember. So Randy, I think Dracula's Randy. Randy Dracula. After that, I put hierarchy because in a lot of vampire things, you've got either whether they're sires.
We need to make an offshoot. Yeah, Vlad Tepes, Dracula, and then his brother Randy Dracula. Randy Dracula. Hey, what you doing, Randy? My name's Randy Dracula. You mind if I bite your neck a little bit? I don't take much. Just I want to get my beak wet.
So hierarchy, sires, covens, or like a high council. Generally, you've got like the oldest vampires on top, kind of like ruling over all the young vampires. I don't get that as much from this particular movie. It just seems to be like the vampire is Dracula.
No,
and
so
he makes people, but
they kind of did have a little bit of that. And I'm not with the Renfield thing, but like with the sirens that lived at the castle, and with Lucy, and even with Mina, is they all had a connection where they felt that they owed something still to him. You could construe it similar to Renfield in a way, but it was more of he would call out to them as his children, which is very much a sire-child relationship at that point.
So I wasn't sure if that was more of just the fact that he's kind of the male power figure more versus the kind of I made you, therefore I've got some. Well, I mean I can exert some sort of.
I feel like it's part of the hierarchy.
I saw it as oh, you're gonna come in my house, you're gonna drink my cokes. Didn't you see my name on his forehead?
Yep.
This is why we have the naming system in the refrigerator, Rebecca.
Here, drink this baby.
You see Dracula across his fucking head? I wrote my name on him when he came in here. You're gonna come in my house and drink my sodas?
Come in my house.
I think it's like a roommate thing. It's like
But with Mina and with Lucy, it's very much there's very much a clear indication that there is some sort of sire-child or master-child relationship. How in depth it is strong as other True Blood's master-child.
It might be a weak pass. Because it's there-ish, but we don't Lucy didn't really live all that long for us to get a good sense of it.
No.
So maybe this is a yes, but maybe a bit more indefinite because they don't really go into it per se.
Yeah, I think Buffy really probably has the best representation of that, but
Fruit Punch Mouth.
Oh yeah, Buffy definitely has it. Where the blood of your sire is an important thing for a lot of spells and all that kind of stuff.
So the whole part, whenever the girls are basically trying to eat Harker, and then he comes in and he starts talking like straight Transylvania, and they don't put any subtitles underneath that. So I honestly believe it was oh, I see. You're gonna come in here and start nibbling on him? Huh? What'd you do today to deserve it? Huh? You rose out of a fucking bed? Huh?
That's pretty dope.
Yeah? You just kind of slept and rose out of a bed? I bought 10 properties. In fucking England.
Did you see those titties though? Because those titties might have been they deserved it.
No, no. I bought 10 properties.
You could tell Lance is getting old.
I know, right? I'm trying to argue boobs, and he's like, no. I'm sticking with my character. I'm not going to get distracted by titties.
No, I just got distracted. No, I'm just saying. I bought 10 properties. I flew the motherfucker out here. I put him up in a room.
You didn't fly him.
You carriaged him.
You carriaged him after a train, and you let your wolves right after him.
I had my best long-armed freak go out and get him in a fucking carriage. I'm just saying.
And then how else are you? But you know, if you don't let us have them, you're just gonna go out the window and like act all weird on the wall again and spook them more.
Yeah, but it's like to me, it was just a weird version of Vampire Dibs. Like, because they started kind of like nibbling on him a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, motherfuckers, I got dibs." And then later on in the movie, he's just kind of like, "All right, I'm going to England. You'll have them." And then like they're just all sitting around like some kind of like weird haze of like eating Jonathan Harker, and so even Keanu Reeves in his brilliant acting in that movie is still kind of like.
Whoa.
I'd like you to do better when you have 3 nubile vampire women just like sexing you up and drinking your blood constantly. How would you act?
That's how I'd act.
I think it sounds like you'd be a vampire already. All right.
Yeah. No, I'd just be like, do it.
So I put sunlight weakness as because generally we think of they burn in sunlight, but sometimes they're just like they go into sunlight and it's like.
To me, that's a half to half. Yeah, they have unlimited power. You need to give them like some serious limitations.
But like in Dracula, when instead of being harmed by sunlight, he is weakened by it.
Yeah, he's just not.
He can't access his full range of power.
So he's fucking Superman. In your son,
he's opposite Superman.
In your son, I'm super powerful. But if you give me a little piece of green rock, then I become like you.
Yeah,
it's the opposite. It's like when he's in the daylight, he's just kind of like a dude.
Yeah,
with like weakened. Because I guess he still kind of was I guess he's still quick. He kind
it's stupid. Yeah, well, yeah, he did the really fast.
But for the most part, and I mean, when he was in the shade, he could still talk to wolves. But
so it was here, because I mean he was weaker, or so they say, but he was still presenting power when he was in the sunlight. He definitely didn't burn in the sunlight, so I think that's kind of a for like sunlight weakness being one of the things you think of when you think of Dracula. It's not really part of the book. In the movie, because I think this movie is like pretty.
The movie's supposed to be
really
based,
close to the book.
Like my understanding was Francis Ford Coppola gave them a copy of Bram Stoker's book and said, read this, because that was basically going to be the basis for everything out of the script, was straight from that book. And I'm sure they still edited some of the dialogue and whatnot.
You kind of got to. And so I imagine that the sunlight, like full on destroying evil, must have come later at some point in time.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Because like the Bram Stoker might not have wrote cues on how that people were acting, and that's probably why Keanu Reeves was acting that way, because he read it straight out of the book, and Jonathan Harker never had a moment of like he looked suspiciously or he thought deeply or he looked terrified.
Hey, he hadn't been given the range to be John Wick and Johnny Silverhand yet. Give Keanu a break.
Which is funny because both of those characters are fucking Keanu Reeves. He's another one of those actors. Don't get me wrong, Keanu, I know you watch this channel and I love you. But you're another one of those actors.
Yeah, he's the second other viewer.
Yeah. You're another one of those actors who play you and people fucking love you for it. I don't know what it was about the picture of you eating a sandwich on a bench that made everyone fall in love with you.
It's just how melancholy he looked. Like when you've been having a shit day and you just like sit down and eat a sandwich and it makes you happy. But now he's just not like the sandwich isn't enough to do it for him. Like he's still eating the sandwich and kind of melancholy. When you're like, man, how bad is your day that even a sandwich doesn't cheer you up?
Well, it's like the biggest thing I like about Keanu Reeves is when you hear stories about him. Mm-hmm. They're good stories. Like I haven't heard any. He's a complete and utter dickbag.
No, he's one of the genuinely good guys in Hollywood from everything I've heard. From
the sound of it. Yeah.
And if you're an actor that's one of those people who's like, don't look me in the eye when we're on set. Seriously, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, it seems like Tom Hanks is one of those guys too. Just have you seen like the clip of like 2 people doing the wedding photos, and Tom Hanks is walking by, so he kind of like stops and congratulates them and takes a couple pictures with them, and then just goes about his day.
Yeah, no, he seems like he seems like he's another really good person.
Yeah,
but I thought that Ezra Miller was a good person.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, well, moving on.
Let's move along after. Let's not dwell.
So I put holy weakness to encompass like holy symbols, holy water, consecrated.
I mean,
ground.
that's fairly standard, and that like this whole movie is based around that.
Yeah.
Because he defiled a holy symbol, which is how he got cursed.
But it's specifically Christianity. Like if I hold up a symbol of Buddha, would they be like?
It depends on which one you go with.
Yeah.
Sometimes the symbol, like if someone holds, it's not the symbol. Because like think back to Fright Night when the vampire killer guy. I don't remember his name.
Peter Vincent.
Peter Vincent held it up the first time. Like
You have to have faith.
Yeah.
For that to work, Mr. Vincent. I fucking love that movie so much.
So it's not just the symbol. It's the kind of faith you put behind it.
Yeah.
So I could hold a statue of Buddha, and the guy would be like, and then you'd be like, Buddha power, and he's like,
it depends on which mythos you're going with, and you have to believe in it.
Yeah.
Every single time I've seen it, it's crosses.
Yes.
Well, but keep in mind that European and most of the vampire culture you're getting exposed to is being produced by America, which is highly Christian. So you're not really getting a high representation. The closest that you have is probably Willow in Buffy because she's Jewish, and even then they do use Christian symbology and crucifixes to whenever they have to ward vampires back out of buildings, in her own house because she's
when they were doing the reverse spell to keep Angel out, that she hid the cross behind something,
behind like curtains and whatnot. And,
it's like, her mom never sees this,
or her dad. But typically, like in the Buffy movie, like, you know, she tries to use the cross against Lothos, and he goes, what's going to save you? Your puny faith. And he grabs it, and it catches on fire because it's like, yeah, it's burning him, but he's not scared of it.
Yeah.
And she goes, no, my keen fashion sense, and she uses it to create a fireball with the hairspray. So
I do not remember that.
I mean,
I've seen that movie a lot, Lance. Why do you think I constantly quote how funky is your chicken?
Well, if you were to take everything from that movie literal, Menzies lets you know that a vampire stare.
Yeah, and that was one of the best things they removed from the movie to the TV show.
Like
okay, let's be real.
So there's one full week of you actually having menstrual cramps where you're just like, they're here.
Pretty much. It was
Where the fuck is it?
That's terrible, and that's awful, and no.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you a guy question. So is there bleeding involved? I know normally during the menstrual cycle. So in your opinion, if a vampire comes around, is there any bleeding involved in that?
No. Because you can have menstrual cramps without having your period. You can have them prior to the start of your period, so no.
All right, ladies, start making fun of me in the comments below because I'm a guy and my knowledge of human anatomy as far as it comes to the opposite sex, very limited.
Yeah, he's only been with me for how many years?
17? 18. 19.
20.
So we've been married since 2012. We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary. I made you wait 9 years before I proposed. I'd say we're going on 20 years.
Yeah.
Send help. I mean, I love you, baby.
All right.
Are you watching the laptop? Sorry.
In order to save the next one, or save Lance, we'll go to the next one. Which I called it Forbiddance. And
the threshold stuff.
It's you have to respect the people's threshold. Like sometimes it depends on which one you watch too. Like some public property you can't go into, but like the library says all who seek knowledge come within, and they're like, I can come in now because there's a written thing. And then there's others which I've noticed, like vampires, that don't seem to give a shit.
Yeah, so, and it's my understanding like that was clearly not an issue for Dracula. I don't feel like it
didn't really seem like it. A lot of the times he didn't enter the threshold, but he was able to project his like shadow in and all that kind of stuff.
But he got into Lucy's room, and as far as we can tell, unless there was a secret while they were screwing out in the garden, secret message was later. He's like, yeah, come back by and come right in and join me in my room.
Come back to my place, Wolfman, anytime you want.
But I mean, if you welcome them into your home, they can come in and eat you. So like if I walked up to your front door and there's a mat that says welcome, does that count?
No.
It might.
I mean, in my world, it would.
It depends on, I think, some of the.
I think it depends on it, but most of the ones that I've seen and referenced in pulp culture, typically welcome mats don't.
You usually have to. A lot of the ones I've seen, you have to be welcomed specifically by the person that lives there. There's others I've seen where you just have to be welcomed by someone within the property.
Yeah.
So, like, if you are a very strong vampire, you could like enchant someone and tell them to like, "Ooh, invite me in," and that's good enough. Other times it's not good enough. I mean, that's kind of.
I mean, it all depends on on the vampire lore.
I would have it be a double whammy. If I was a vampire and I walked up to your door and there's a welcome mat, I'd be like, oh, okay. Well, and then there's a mezuzah on the door just inside the frame, and I'd be like, oh, okay. Now that's the barrier that keeps me out. Because if you're cocky enough to put a mat out front of your house that just welcomes everybody, then I think vampires should be able to like straight up charge into your house and eat your face.
Maybe.
I mean,
it again, it depends.
Yeah. But like I said, I don't feel like in the Dracula that there's a threshold requirement.
I think that's one of the ones on here that's like not there at all.
I mean, if you had the door open and a vampire walked up and he was like, "Hey, can I come inside?" and you're like, "Yeah, come on in," but your doormat said "fuck off."
You said come in.
Yeah.
That supersedes all doormat rules.
Yes.
That's because it's.
I don't feel like the doormat. Because in theory, if the doormat is all that's required in this world, you literally could ghoul somebody to buy nothing but welcome mats and just throw them in front of doors and be like, I'm just gonna go in any door then, you know, because then it's like, who put the welcome mat there? Did the owner of the property put it there, or did you hire somebody, some kid on the street, to just go around and put welcome mats in front of doors?
What stops the vampire walking around with like a bunch of mats and just kind of walking up to a house and going, don't mind if I do.
So, I mean, let's think about it. I mean,
it has to be put there by the owner. So what if you had a vampire who was a welcome mat salesman? And you walked up and was like, hey, you want to buy this welcome mat? Be like, it's really nice. Usually they're $20. I'll sell it to you for $5. And the person's like, yeah, thanks, man.
At that point in time, just be like that vampire salesman who comes by and be like, hello, I'd like to talk to you about our peaceful vampire ways. It's like, oh, peaceful vampire ways? You don't drink blood? No, not at all. How about you invite us in and we'll talk about it?
Wait a minute.
let's be real.
I'm not falling for that again.
Are you just standing at the door to buy the welcome mat? Or have you already invited them in to sit down to
You're selling welcome mats? Come on.
Because most of the time, if it's a door-to-door salesman, if they're going to get the sale, they're probably getting invited in. Because I know, for the most part, if there's a door-to-door salesman who comes by our house and I have to go answer that door, I'm like, I put on the most fuck off and get away from me attitude as I possibly can, because I don't want to deal with them.
Yeah, one time I answered a front door of Jehovah's Witnesses with a 6-foot spike, real life replica, and it really confused them. They never came back. They never came back.
What do you want?
Yeah, they knocked on the door and we bought Amber a standee, a 6-foot like spike standee, and I went and got it, and I opened the door and put his head through, and I was like, "What do you want?" And they were like, "Oh, we were wondering if we could talk." Go away. And then like when I shut the door, and when they were walking down the sidewalk, I put his head in the window and had him follow them, and they were just kind of watching it. So they never came back though, so it worked.
So the threshold stuff is in, I think, a lot of fiction when you're dealing with like evil creatures, and that's just kind of like a catch-all.
Yeah.
Especially like in the Dresden Files, like game.
Can they go to Walmart?
Yes.
Yeah,
because it's a public place.
It's a public place.
Again, also depending on which.
Can they go to Sam's?
You have to have a club membership. If they buy the club membership, maybe.
What if they already had a club membership before they got turned into a vampire?
Well, if it's a lifelong thing, then maybe not, because their life might be over.
Yeah.
If I died, is this still good?
Right. Questions that don't get asked properly.
I know. And some of the ones I've seen, like getting acceptance in is good once. Other ones I've seen getting acceptance in once is forever.
Well, I liked Let the Right One In. I like their rules. You can come in. I rescind your, like what happens. But it seemed, so for her, she had not been in his apartment until, like, did she go back multiple times? Because it seemed like she'd been in his apartment before.
I'm not sure if that's one where they have to be invited every single.
See,
I think for her it was every single time you come over, he's got to say, "Come on in."
Yeah, because like it seemed like the first time he's like, "Come in," and she came in, and she's like, "You have to invite me in." And he's like, "What happens if I don't?" Come on in. And she stepped in, and like it's still one of the best depictions of what I think happens if that happens.
So like the Buffy the Buffy show does a pretty simple one of like they try to walk through and it's like they hit invisible barrier and they just can't come in.
Well, if
until Dawn yells at him, "Why don't you come in here and say that?"
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong Buffy. I was thinking of David Arquette floating outside your window, going, "Let me in, I'm hungry." I'm hungry. It was so bad.
I'm hungry.
So bad. David
So-
Arquette, you're a bad actor.
And so far out of 15, I think that's the only one that doesn't really seem to apply to Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I'm reading ahead. The next one doesn't apply either.
Water weakness?
Oh, sorry. I skipped ahead.
Yeah. You can't cross running water, or water can burn like acid depending on...
So we did discuss this a little bit outside of that when we were going over the criteria, and I do believe that you could make the argument, that there is a water weakness for this because I feel like that's one of the reasons why he had to be transported in Earth to get to London via boat, because obviously you can only get to London via boat at this time anyways, even if he had taken a train from, Transylvania to France, which he didn't. He always loads it in Romania because I have a feeling he can't get all the way there without causing suspicion.
Yeah, he probably needs his...
So he still had to get out and feed. So he didn't have to...
No. See, I think he stays in the dirt and he becomes aged and more aged, because if you look, and the reason I say that is when he goes from Romania or Transylvania, to London the first time, he's already old.
And he becomes the wolf and gets Lucy.
And he feeds to become young again. When he leaves London in a hurry after they identify him, in that travel, he goes from young, vigorous Gary Oldman to old, decrepit. And that's because I feel like that's a signifying that time has passed. He's not been able to feed.
Yeah.
Now, typically in most pop culture TV shows and whatnot, a lot of times when Dracula does arrive in London, there is normally like the boat he arrives on is normally considered plagued because a lot of sailors have gone missing. In other things, like in show that I love, Penny Dreadful, that they believe that the ship is plagued. It's got like a black plague or some sort of illness on board on it. So
I still think one of my favorite depictions of it, because like I said, I've only seen the whole having dirt from your homeland twice, but then I started thinking about it, and there was an episode of What We Do in the Shadows, and I know it's a jokey show, and it should be, but I know you're not big into that kind of,
I don't like mockumentaries.
Yeah, but like it has an episode that I thought was hilarious where like one of their friends was getting married in Vegas, and they go and they get dirt from their homeland, and in the hotel room they put it underneath the bed, so they're sleeping underneath the hotel room beds on like the dirt from their home country, and the maid comes in and vacuums all of it up. And then after that, it's the rule was, and I thought it was a neat rule, is because the maid came and vacuumed up all the dirt and they still had to stay in Vegas, that they didn't die, but they couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
So it's like they were trying to sleep, but something was always like they couldn't get comfortable. So like they went through 3 days of that, and like they were all bleary-eyed and like tired and irritable and like snapping at each other. And I thought that was
a regular day for them.
So I thought that was like a neat fiat. It's like it won't kill you,
Yeah.
but it makes life extremely unpleasant.
Again, most of their weaknesses don't kill them. It's just kind of like might bring the monster out of them or something like a little bit too.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like the dirt from I say dirt from the homeland, but a lot of times it might just be the grave dirt. It might be dirt. It might be grave dirt that from the grave they specifically were buried in. Mm-hmm. It could just be dirt from the land where they came from. I mean, there's a bunch of different ones, and it kind of varies on which kind of specificity you want to get into. Because I mean, vampire, like we're almost done, but this is a lot of stuff to kind of throw on.
58 minutes, and we haven't really talked a lot about the movie.
We're talking about it.
No, we've talked a lot about the movie in between the criteria.
We don't do this every time, though, right?
This is a less forever movie.
Oh.
I mean, we'll
be able to go through it faster because
we'll
we're establishing what they are right now.
Yes, I'm establishing the list so that in the future we can kind of.
And then we can be like, yeah, no, that didn't apply. Oh no, this did, and this is why.
Got it.
Because I'm curious how do vampire movies stand up to what we think are vampire movies? Because I mean, people shit on Twilight, but they shit on Twilight because how much of this list is there?
It's fine. I think Twilight is just as viable as a vampire movie than any of the other ones, because it okay, that said, I don't like the Twilight movies, but
yeah, they're not.
My vampires are not this generation's vampires, so
I don't think Twilight is representative of this generation's vampires, but I have very specific issues with Twilight that stem from more than just tweaking the lore of vampires.
Yeah, and I've seen people talk about it. I've never actually seen the movies ourselves, which is going to be on the docket for Does It Suck? We're gonna have to watch. In order to hate on something, you have to watch it.
That is literally my Home Alone Christmas. Like this is a nightmare. Don't turn a hobby into a nightmare. That sounds horrible. I watched the first movie with a buddy of mine in the theater because they really liked it, and I was just so bored. Well, it was so bad.
Well, I'll be sitting next to you, and we'll make fun of it together.
And that'll make it better.
And you drink a bottle of wine.
Yes, that might help make it better too. After water weakness, I put silver weakness.
It's werewolves.
No,
it's evil.
Sometimes I've seen some vampire lores that require that they get silvered weapons.
It's there in D&D too. So the reason why silver is considered a pure metal because back before you have germ theory, silver is bad for bacterial growth. So they would find that when you do surgery with silver weapons, it can help quell the evil humors or whatever growing within people. So they associate with silver with good and pure because it doesn't spread disease.
Gold's a pure metal too.
Well, I think silver was a bit more common or whatever.
And I think silver is
harder, so you can actually
harder.
You can make
gold's very soft, and gold is also very conductive.
So people associate silver with good, and therefore when there's something that's evil, silver is its kind of antithesis. That's why werewolves and vampires and stuff have that sort of silver.
And then you get into the thought about the reflections, which depending upon what you're looking at, the reflective surface oftentimes in olden days was backed by a silver lining.
Yes, like back in the day when you made mirrors, you would make them out of silver.
Yeah. And
because silver was a pure metal, it would not cast evil's reflection.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. I never made that association.
No. So, and then I believe also in early photography, silver was
silver nitrate.
Silver nitrate was used in early photography again, which would be why it doesn't cast reflections.
I thought they were just X-Men and you just couldn't catch them on technology.
No, but then you could also make the argument, because water also casts reflections, that it could be also associated with the water. But you often don't see vampires standing at a place where you would be able to tell if they had a reflection in water to know that.
Yeah.
But typically,
So I lumped reflection and no photography in with silver weakness because that's kind of like it's vague association.
Yeah.
But a lot of people see that like a vampire doesn't cast a reflection, and that's the only thing that's taken. Not the reason why they don't cast a reflection, just that a vampire does not cast a reflection, and therefore that's the thing they pick up.
So, y'all help me remember if I remember this correctly. So, in the beginning of the movie, when Jonathan Harker is shaving, and Dracula comes in, gets behind him, and he sees the mirror, and I'm fairly certain he saw himself in the reflection before he broke it.
He might have, because like when the door opened up, Keanu would have been looking at the door, and he looked around, and like you even see like the hand kind of creep up behind him and like grab him. There's no reflection of what's there. I think like while he's up there for a second, he flashes himself, and that's what causes it to break.
Well, see, I'm wondering if I look at you, if you're a vampire, and I look in a mirror and I don't see you, but you as the vampire, because it's your eyes, when you look in the mirror, maybe you see yourself, and it horrifies you, and that's why they break them.
Maybe, but also one of the gags early on before he met Mina, he was buying a newspaper. And you're looking at her through a glass window, and you just see the floating newspaper. So he doesn't cast a reflection, but I don't know if he doesn't look at it and therefore doesn't break or something.
The way I viewed it is I saw it less of he saw his reflection. I saw it as Jonathan was going to see he had no reflection, and he used his abilities to break that mirror, so it'd be like, oh look, the mirror is broken. That's why you can't see me. I saw it as that this is just a parlor trick to make it so that it's a little less suspicious, even though I'm about to just go pimp across this wall outside his window here shortly to go get a baby for my my sirens.
That's what I associate it to. And then just being like, damn faulty mirrors always breaking. Like, what?
But
where do you buy mirrors that they break? Apparently all the wrong places.
I went into a store, and they sold nothing but the same picture of the sad person. And then I realized the store sold mirrors.
Thank you, Bo Burnham.
Thank you, Bo Burnham.
All
Love you.
right.
Love you, Bubba. I know you're our other watcher.
All right, so the silver itself, it's inconclusive because they don't really.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say werewolves, or lycanthropes.
That's it. Vampires are weak to silver.
if we went to get the D&D manuals out right now. It was
in Fright Night.
Yeah.
Where?
Vincent brought something. He's like, hey, could you bring something silver?
Yeah, but he was working off of old school 1930s movies vampire lore.
That's based off of something.
But it didn't burn because remember, it's like, hey, I just want to placate. So he didn't bring a real silver item, so that when he grabbed it,
he brought probably a silver plated something, which is normally like.
But then
not
when
really
later on
silver.
he touched something actually silver, he dropped it, and it like broke. Was it like his watch or something? He touched something silver, it fell and broke, and that's what made Vincent.
So he had it. It wasn't that. It was, if I remember correctly, it was almost like a little compact that he had that was like something to like redo his makeup on thing.
Okay.
And he saw the reflection. He saw the reflection of Jerry in the thing, and he dropped it, and then that's when Jerry was like, "Oh."
But he also brought something not silver for the vampire to touch. It's there.
Silver is
We're gonna have to agree to disagree.
Silver is definitely one of the tropes.
It's a trope. It's not a trope in everything.
Name it in something else.
Dracula 2000. Dracula is weak. Dracula, and I can't tell you why he's weak to silver if you've never seen it, because it spoils the ending of the movie. But he is specifically weak to silver for. Do you want me to tell you why?
I figured that shit out.
What?
He's weak to a very specific spoiler reason. Why would someone be weak to silver if they had like 30 pieces of it or something? Yeah,
that would be it.
Okay.
30 pieces of silver. That is part of the.
That might be the association with why silver hurts evil too.
Where in Buffy was anybody ever weak to silver?
But Buffy is not the end all be all of all vampires.
This is a vampire trope list. I want to see how much.
Say down in the comments if you think that silver hurts vampires. I say no.
It does.
Dracula 2000 is a terrible movie. Believe me, I watched it in the theater.
Somewhere vampires are like, yeah,
they were weak to silver for a reason.
Somewhere vampires are like, yeah, no, totally. We're totally weak to silver, and like werewolves are like, come on, buddy, we don't have that much.
Doesn't like in my world. In my world, I did not make vampires necessarily weak to silver. I did make my lycanthropes weak to silver, but I didn't do it to my vampires because I'm trying to do some different things.
And it's a thing that's. Like, not everything on this list has to be there for something to be a vampire. I'm just saying, like, these are some things that come up. And silver weakness is one that comes up. But it is not necessarily... in every single vampire thing you see, are they going to be weak to silver? Not necessarily. But that is a trope.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't think of any other thing.
I mean, it's there in D&D, too. I can pull out a D&D book.
No, I don't want to hold up this train. Moving on.
All right. Another one that's occasionally there is the garlic weakness.
Never understood that one.
I don't know. That one I don't know what it's there for. And again, that one's not always there. Sometimes they're like weakened to garlic. Sometimes they're not.
So there are no Italian vampires?
No, there are. I can't remember what the reasoning is for garlic.
My mom spends all day making this for you, and you're not even going to eat some. It's got garlic.
Mama, stop putting so much of garlic in my spaghetti.
Now I'm going to have to look that one up.
For why it exists? I don't know why.
I'm already looking it up.
Okay.
So for like most of these, I've got some vague understanding. That one is like.
That one, like, I've seen it, and I've seen it in a lot. Like, I know, like, in Lost Boys, they bring up the garlic weakness. Whether or not it's valid in that one remains to be disputed, but they bring up garlic. Obviously, Buffy brings up garlic a lot.
And does it work in Buffy? Like, actually? I know they hang it up and...
It's one of the component spells to rescind an invitation to the vampire, because every time you normally see it, you hang garlic along the entryways, and you also redo this crucifixes.
So
Also, but like Buffy also hangs garlic in her room when she's just trying to keep in after she finds out that Angel's a vampire.
Yeah.
So here's two that I found that I thought was funny. Garlic, specifically the chemical compound allicin inside garlic, is a powerful antibiotic. Some European beliefs around vampires stated that they were created by a disease of the blood, so a powerful antibiotic would kill the vampire. But the one I liked down here was really good. It says, the simplest explanation for why vampires hate garlic is that it stinks. Vampires are assumed to have heightened senses due to their condition. So, like, because they have super smell and everything like that, they're like, oh,
Yeah,
garlic.
that's so strong.
But there's got to be that one vampire. It's just like, oh,
I love garlic.
oh my
No,
God,
a
is
lot
that
of
garlic
times-
bread?
I mean, I've seen garlic has had
I was gonna say.
Uh-oh. Here, just take them home.
I was just trying to touch that.
I've seen like I think sometimes garlic has caused like
Your phone's weird.
like not a full on burning sensation, but like it does something.
Oh. Get out of here. All right, I'll have to read this one now. So we're hopping back. Why does silver hurt vampires? Silver is originally a vampire's weakness because when Judas betrayed Jesus over the in Jerusalem, he was rewarded with 30 pieces. Okay, neat. But I don't think Judas was a fucking vampire.
Are minor compared to those by sunlight.
This burns because by silver, the burns caused by silver are minor compared to those caused by sunlight. Silver has the effect, though, of slowing a vampire's ability to heal so greatly that.
I mean, it's silver is.
And you know what? They did that, I think, in True Blood. I think Eric got shot by Silver at one point, and then he is his healing is slowed down, and this is when he's forcing Suki, whatever her name is. Suki, that's it. When he forces her to like suck the wound to pull the poison out, but it's Silver really.
Then she's sucky.
You know, one thing that we did not include on the list,
Yes.
but could be something, is the common vampire trope in current vampire lores is the healing properties of vampire blood.
Oh,
Healing
okay.
and or addictive properties. That is a very common.
I guess I've not seen that one as much. Like,
It's more, I think, more prevalent in fiction and
Okay.
like in writing, but it's in Dresden Files. It's in.
is that all,
True
or
Blood.
is that the Red Court in Dresden? And that was their saliva, right?
It was their saliva, but like in True Blood, it's called True Blood because it's a drug. They turn vampire blood into a drug, basically, and
Okay.
it can have, but it's become kind of a common trope. Because of the popularity of
Okay.
other pop
Is
culture,
that people kind of view vampire
and
blood
Buffy also uses vampire blood to heal.
as, which one do they do? I know they had Angelus or Angel drink Slayer blood in order to heal.
Okay, maybe I might
But
have
I don't
reversed
remember
it.
vampire blood being used to heal. So that's not a trope I'm familiar with.
Yeah, no, it doesn't it's more of probably like paranormal literature.
Okay.
You know, I think I've seen something too where it was like vampires would like cut themselves and like drip their blood on wounds and they would close up. So
Okay.
I think I've seen that too. I couldn't tell you where I saw that at.
Yeah, I mean, I
But I
know,
do remember
I
that.
know, like True Blood's like a big one. I know in my fictional
True
world.
Blood is trash. The show was amusing, but no.
There was another one that I had.
If I heard to hear that
I forgot.
dumbass say Suki one more time.
Okay.
Suki.
There was another
Bill Compton.
trope that I had thought of
That actor's bad.
that I'm now blanking on.
Well, if you remember, we'd get up to a nice even D20. So that brings us to 19. With magical blood, I put underneath magical prowess.
Yeah.
You added?
Sure, magical blood.
Oh.
It's not what I'm familiar with, but that's why I wanted to bring this thing up with you.
Yeah, and it's the one that popped into my head.
So, magical blood also would be the whole thing with, I think that's making Renfields. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of why I put it underneath magical prowess per se. Is that sometimes it's not in every vampire thing either. Sometimes if you bite someone, they're going to become a vampire.
Oh,
Other times,
that's
if you
the other one, and I don't know if maybe
you've gotta
it
do
falls into the precursor of one of the other abilities. But something that was definitely done in Dracula that is actually a staple of World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade, is the vampire's embrace or kiss, where when you bite, it's got like, it's an ecstasy kind of feeling. That's actually a very common trope for a lot of vampires, is that the bite is euphoric almost,
some have it euphoric,
orgasmic.
and some have it like pure pain.
So I remember.
So there's a very, I don't know if it falls under Randy because it's kind of sexualized.
Would we put that under Randy maybe?
Well, so I don't remember what it was, but I remember there was something where it was like when the vampires kiss, the reason it's so exhilarating is because I remember watching something where like the vampire basically bit his own lip, or she bit her own lip. And when they gave the kiss, some of their blood would get into the person's mouth, and that's what would make them euphoric.
Right, so I added magical blood underneath magical prowess, and I added
you know what I'm talking
euphoric
about.
bite underneath Randy.
Leave it in the comments.
I think that's about what it is. It kind of goes with the whole sexuality aspect of.
But like, because and I remembered that when, especially because like clearly like Lucy and Mina both had very euphoric reactions to the bite. Yeah. And I remembered it because in Vampire the Masquerade, all of the clans, with the exception of one, have that ability that's just baked into when they give their kiss.
Like the Nosferatu, or the one that don't.
The Giovanni. There's an Italian clan that's very similar to the Ventru, but the Giovanni are they have basically their bite does not mask the pain. It's painful. There's no euphoria behind it, and that's one of the clan flaws.
They're immune to garlic too.
So
that'd be hell.
But it's basically the Italian mafia and the Vampire the Masquerade world. It's a very fun clan to play. I played one for a while.
So I think out of 19, because we would say in Dracula that he had magical blood. Did he really show his blood doing?
Well, I mean, the most that you saw was like, you know,
the girl drinking at the end.
The transformative power of his blood to, you know, that required person drinking the blood, because you know it's very weird.
I guess that we'd put underneath magical blood is how you make more vampires.
Yeah, because you know, again, and that becomes the question of, in vampire movies or lore, how do you create more vampires? Is it the simple act of biting, similar to lycanthropy, that creates it, which does in certain...
Which is in let me in and let the right one in.
You know, the bite itself is what creates it? Or is it, you know... The sharing of blood, which is, you know, Buffy.
You bite them, and if you don't kill them, then I think you become a Renfield. But if you bite them and you drain them and kill them, then you become a vampire.
In the Buffy show,
there's a sharing of blood.
It's you bite them, they bite you. It's this whole bitey thing going on.
That's totally a quote. He just quoted what I was trying to say.
Why didn't Riley turn into a vampire?
Because he never drank her blood.
He never drank her blood. She drank his blood. He never drank her blood. You have to get drained to the point where you're almost dead, and then they have to give their blood to you.
Yeah. They basically drain you to the cusp and then give you blood.
And it's kind of like their blood replacing your blood.
You know,
well, you die, but then you rise as a vampire.
You know, and like the same thing happened in Shadowhunters, which is, you know, very much young adult kind of stuff.
It was there in the Interview with the Vampire.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you know, you don't have to get drained to nearly dead, but most of the time you do. A lot of times you do have to get buried because basically they drain you to the point, they give you their blood, then you basically still die, and then they bury you, and then within the next 24 to 48 hours, you normally dig yourself out of your own grave.
Yeah. And I think that's they bury you in those continuities or whatever because you need
True Blood does that.
You need to have a grave soil to associate yourself with.
Yeah. But True Blood did that.
It's not always there.
I just think it's gotten complicated.
I can't remember
over the
if
years.
Anita Blake's Laurel K. Hamilton stuff.
Oh,
the Laurel K. Hamilton, Anita Blake books did that or not.
So
I don't remember. They don't really go into the vampire.
In the Laurel K. Hamilton books.
I'm so confused.
Well, yeah, they didn't really talk about. Was his name Claude?
Jean-Claude.
Yeah, they didn't really talk about like his deal.
He was just an incubus, basically.
Well, he's a vampire.
Yeah, but his power was incubus. Goes right along with the Randy part.
Yeah, Randy.
The fuck is an incubus?
Incubus is the male version of a succubus.
Or in some things, an incubus and a succubus are the same thing. It's just how they're presenting.
Yeah, but an incubus is just the male terminology.
It's like saying warlock or witch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, depending on which thing you pull from, because a warlock in D&D is not a witch in D&D.
So if that's the case, if you have to have like a male and female version of it, why are male nurses? Why aren't they niece?
So we're moving away from that terminology.
Well, it's dumb. I mean, just make them all witches. Or make them all...
Which, again, that's a thing that exists too.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, they do that in certain things. Mm-hmm. Not everything, because, you got witches in Harry Potter, but you got wizards for the boys.
And see, if they did that these days, like somebody would walk up to a vampire guy and be like, whoa, are you a vampire? And he'd be like, whoa. I prefer incubus. And they're like, sorry, my bad.
Now, he didn't call himself an incubus. He called himself a vampire, but his power set gave him an incubus one. He fed off of sexual energy, which is why he ran the club Guilty Pleasures.
I don't know how I got through 8 of those books.
I don't know how you got through 8 of those books.
Those books started off so good. The first book was really good. Second book, pretty good. And then for some reason, I just kept reading. Narcissist in Chains is where I fell off. And that book is just bad.
I got to book 12, I think. And then I was like, why am I reading about the whore of St. Louis, as I was calling Anita at that point? And because, the girl who was refusing to have sex with people because the only person prior to the start of the books that she had ever had sex with was her former fiancé of several years, and then they broke up. And then, so she was in relationships, but she wasn't having sex. And then suddenly, by the book I stopped at, she literally was having random sexual acts, not necessarily intercourse,
with a were-jaguar. With
random people, because her succubus energy that from her triumvirate with Jean-Claude and Richard were just so powerful and so couldn't be contained that she just literally had to stop in the middle of an investigation in the back room of a nightclub to jerk off 2 guys and fuck another. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm done.
What kind of world do we live in when Twilight gets more popular than that? Come on, people.
I was just like, I'm done. It's like, if that is your cup of tea, all more power to you. But I was like, this was not what made me interested in the character. I liked her moral compass and how she was not trying to be a sexual character. That she did put some value on that, because I felt like that's something that we don't see a lot anymore. And there's nothing wrong with being like, look, I might be engaged in a relationship, but it's not all about the sex. I kind of like that, but it gave some good sexual tension. And then, but you go from that to, she's got 6 committed sexual partners that she's in various states of relationships with, that they're all bonded to her. And
that shit sells books.
Yeah, probably.
That shit sells books.
I'm sure it does, but
yeah, it's good.
One of your biggest pet peeves is the fact that 50 Shades of Grey got popular because they literally...
50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fan fiction with the serial numbers.
It is.
Yeah.
But we'll go back to number 12, Randy. People are Randy.
Well, it's so that's what sells books. Like, I've honestly... Like,
I wrote sex in my books?
Yes, you have. But I think the difference is that you write a lot of stuff that's actually, like, seriously trying to delve into that genre. But then... I felt like if you and Beck would get together and write a book where it's like werewolves are like jerking off Frankensteins, and Frankensteins are blowing the vampires.
I struggle with just writing porn for the sake of writing porn. I'm sorry.
I think even like one day we were at the D&D table, like, and Beck had me read like this weird thing with like muscles galloping and all this sort of stuff, and it was
some of those are intentionally joke books, and some of those are real, and it's really scary which ones are real and which ones are jokes. I've seen
the titles of some books that make me kind of chuckle, and I'll have to show some later.
I remember there was something like spasming orgasm or something like that, or it was bad. Like it was. Yeah,
I know exactly which one you guys are talking about.
No, that's what I was talking about. Pounding. I got pounded in the butt by my own butt, and it's this whole guy that does that weird.
They actually did an episode on that in Citation Needed.
Chuck Tingle.
Yeah, that's the name, Chuck Tingle.
Chuck Tingle.
Yeah.
He writes jokey stuff.
Yeah, but people read it.
I don't have it in me to write that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong, it's horrible. But I'm just saying.
But I'm like I've written plenty of porn, but I can't write porn for the sake of just writing porn. It has to be a plot. There has to be a reason.
I've read Playboy for their articles. Does that count?
No.
No? Okay.
Okay. Is there anything in particular you want to add about Dracula, or is it kind of in discussing vampires in general? Do you think we've kind of got it? Because I mean, we could talk about we could talk about the movie.
Well, so like one of the reasons why this is such a great piece of cinema, in my opinion, is I feel like there's a lot of cinematography in it that's the CGI is terrible,
yes.
and I will never deny that. But there's so many iconic cinematography shots that are just gorgeous and beautiful. Like, there's so many scenes that I can just sit here and I just remember them. And it's not all just, oh, look, her titties and she's fucking the werewolf dude. You know, it's when Lucy's walking into the hedge garden and you just see the red sheer, like, whatever part of her robe or dress that she's, or nightgown. And it's just kind of floating in the air, like very.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's very almost like whimsical or ethereal, and it's just a gorgeous shot because it's just a stark red amongst this kind of dreary gray for the most part.
And I think there was a lot of cool shots when it would like cut to Mina or whatever, like lying on the bed, and for like a second you would see like Dracula over, but then as it like went to the real shot, he's like not actually there.
Yeah,
and in spirit,
there's so much, and Francis Ford Coppola did so much of making it so beautiful. And then there's a lot of the shadow play with Dracula's shadow, especially at his castle, that's really just like very creative, and you can see like his shadow's kind of autonomous, and there's so much of that just stands out. And like I just remember, like, you know, and like I know most people, if you think about the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula's imagery that's so iconic, you probably associate it with the Mr. Burns version of it, because The Simpsons totally ripped off Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula image for Mr. Burns in one of their Halloween episodes, but it works because Mr. Burns does kind of look like Dracula. But you know, but you know, when Gary Oldman's got the bun hair or butt hair, and he's like sitting there, he's like, nah, you know, it's a really iconic shot. There's a lot of that kind of does still carry through, and the prosthetics, for as bad as the CG holds up,
the prosthetics are top notch still.
It looks great. It doesn't look like he's wearing masks.
So I'll tell you what I had problems with in the movie.
Keanu Reeves.
They never explain. Well, that's
Keanu Reeves.
That's coming. They never explain.
They never explain Keanu Reeves.
They never explain why he buys 10 properties.
They do. That's
in
true.
a close proximity. That never comes up. If they explain it in the books, please put it in the comments, because that bothers me. It's like, okay, you're gonna get me there because I'm desperate for a sale for one house. What if I buy 10? Oh yeah, no. I'll let freaky coachman pull me into the 10 houses. Yeah, fuck yeah. Wolves, fuck them. Cliffs, who gives a shit? That's 10 houses I'm making a commission.
10 houses.
Oh, there's a guy before me that went fucking crazy. Fuck it. 10 houses.
He was only going to sell him one house, and he went crazy for it. I'll go crazy for 10 houses.
That still bothers me. The other thing that bothers me was he's already acting a little weird when Keanu gets there, and he's still like, whoa, okay, whoa, that's weird, whoa, and he doesn't have any of it. And then finally there's that one little scene where he's like, don't go out into the castle at night. It's very old, and something might bite you in the face. And he's like, oh, I've seen all kind of weird. And that's when he gets like real serious. And then that's... In my head, I saw Michael Keaton from Batman going, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Because the very next scene is him like, look at me, I'm a salamander on the wall. You know, like it's like they tried to play it to where everything was okay-ish. Like, I would have been a little bothered with like chicks rising up out of the bed and like, you know, nipping at my fingers and toes. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think I would have gotten over it. Because he kind of comes in and like saves him. And be like, what? I could totally see a titty there.
After the wall crawl. Because he went up to get a baby.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, yeah. He was leaving to go get them a baby because he knew they were going to go after his meal ticket.
Yeah. It's like, let me get my 10 houses, then you eat this guy. Until then, here's a baby.
You know,
what was it with like all of the women in the movie? Like, they all want to eat kids. He brings those 3 girls a baby. Lucy goes and grabs a toddler.
I wonder if it's vampires eat what they consider innocent.
Let's see.
So men consider women innocent. Women consider children innocent.
So that's the one
That
thing
could be it.
that I think you should have added on your list is like the trope comes up all the time. It's got to be virgin blood.
Is that all the time?
Well, I hear it a lot. Like it's so yeah. I think it's one of those tropes where like in horror movies where the vampire was like trying to kill this particular person because they have like pure blood or heroic blood.
So I don't know if that's.
I might be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily separate, but I can loop it into blood dependency, like virgin blood best.
So I'm getting that from like one particular movie called Once Bitten, where she needed virgin blood to retain her beauty and good looks.
Which is based off of Elizabeth Bathory. Who used to bathe in, who is reported to have bathed in human blood.
So now we have a D20.
No, well, I put virgin blood best underneath blood dependency. Because you need blood, but virgin blood, that's the stuff.
Okay. Because who's going to find a virgin in this day and age?
That's kind of also thought like wall crawling, but
the only other thing I can think of, but I feel like it's not something that's been really ever pulled into movies is Vampire Society secret. That's a very common trope in books and in a certain regard TV shows.
But if we consider that part of hierarchy, because that's kind of what I was thinking of, like the secret society of it all, kind of living in this whole. I mean, that was my thought anyway.
I always thought the hierarchy thing was stupid. Like, you have a dude who bites a dude. And that dude's underneath that dude. It's like a pyramid scheme of vampires. Yeah. So, like, one day you're, like, out and you're like, look at me. I'm a vampire. I'm going to suck your blood. Look how fast I am. And then all of a sudden you're like, beep, 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 beep. Fuck. And then you find out, like, Uncle Saul, who bit you, died. And now you're just a dude.
Yeah.
Like.
So there's varying things about your sire dying, depowering you. And typically you have to be part and parcel to it, or you have to be fresh enough and not been blooded, basically, where you've not made your official kill yet.
Like in Fright Night, I think the girl was turned. They killed Jerry fast enough that she came back. And there was another movie I watched, Vamps, with like Alicia Silverstone and Kristen Ritter and Sigourney Weaver, where Sigourney Weaver was their sire. And in order to become human, they had to go kill Sigourney Weaver. And in so doing, they got to become human again.
Yeah.
So it kind of, which level of, sometimes you kill the sire and it's like, oh, okay, whatever. And sometimes it's you kill the sire and you're not a vampire.
In Supernatural, the vampires, in order to stop them, like, you can convert them back, but you not only have to kill the vampire, you have to kill the vampire before they make a kill. That's important. So you have a very limited time window, because at a certain point, the instinct of what happened to you will take over, and then once you've killed somebody, there's no coming back from it.
The devil you are.
Yeah.
So Buffy is waiting till way too late to save people?
No. Buffy's doesn't have any way to cure vampirism.
Like the Buffy show doesn't have a good chunk of the ones that's on this list.
She does very well with fiends from hell, but lately.
But also in the way the Buffy mythos is written, that Buffy vampires aren't independent from demons. They're considered. They're basically considered it's the demon spawn. Effectively,
it's the demon that inhabits the human body. And so a weird hybrid creature.
So vampires aren't like just some. Even though they're the unique entity, they're considered just part of demons. So Buffy's really kind of broken down into there's humans and there's demons, and that's pretty much the hierarchy. And there's many different kinds of demons, but technically vampires fall underneath that in that show. In the way that the season, was that 6 or was it 5?
Which one?
It was late. It was season 7 when they
opened up the Hellmouth and unlocked.
Well, but when they did when they really talked about the origin of the demons or the vampires, was that 7 or was that in 5 when they first meet the First Slayer? But I thought the little sideshow with this First Slayer
was in season 4. But they go into that merry-go-round in season 7.
Okay, the merry-go-round's where they talk about the first demon.
Because that's when Buffy gets pulled into it and is offered, like, no, we'll make you we'll give you the full demon power so that you can face them. She's like, I don't want that.
Yeah, but that's when they really discuss that the vampires are spawns of demons in that. I think that particular episode. Yes, Lance, I am that much of a nerd when it comes to vampire lore. You knew this when you met me.
She's not even half the girl she
was.
Ow.
So, and I think that's when they open up the gate to hell in season 7, and they let out like the pure blood, real demon versions of vampires. That's like what a vampire could be.
They don't call them Uruk-hai.
No,
Turoks.
It's like a T name, I think.
It is. It's
Terminators.
But I feel like they were playing off of the Uruk-hai from
so
Lord of the Rings because I believe that Andrew was part and parcel of naming them, and that's why.
I would call them Turok-hai, but I think that's. I wonder how much of that is me thinking of orcs from.
I don't care enough to look it up.
Yeah, it's not that big.
All we would have to do is get the Buffy Legendary Picard game down.
It doesn't super pertain to Dracula itself, which I think. I mean, we've been going on for an hour and a half talking about vampires mostly in general with how it pertains to Dracula.
There's like a good, I'd say 30% of people are like, yeah, okay. And then there's another 30% are like, man, fuck these guys. I don't have shit about vampires. And there's another, let's say 40% that are like, where's all the hopping?
Well, we'll get it. Like I think I've seen like a movie with the Jiangshi. That might come up at some point.
I need more head with guts hanging from it.
And I've not seen the movie myself, but I've seen a review of someone going on about those things.
Is Dr. Acula a Japanese vampire?
You mean JD?
Dr. Acula.
From what?
He's a floating head vampire.
From what?
Scrubs.
No.
Didn't they have a scene where the floating head was a vampire?
I don't recall. I don't know Scrubs as well as you.
I don't know Scrubs as well as you.
I mean, there was floating head doctor, and then there was Dr. Acula. And I'm pretty sure they had a Dr. Acula where he was the floating head as well.
No.
I don't.
Which would make him a Japanese vampire.
No, it was a Japanese anyway. That's in order to, let's see, floating head and...
Floating head doctor.
Vampire.
Excuse me.
Vampire.
Sorry, it's a little late. It's coming up on 2, and they still have another video to record.
I know. So that's it. Penangalan is the thing. Is the one that I've heard of. I wonder if they've got an image for it.
What country is it from?
Malay, some Malaysian. The Mananagal is one I've heard of too. That's Philippines. Let's all look up images. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just weird.
It's a girl with like her, you can't really see it, a girl with a floating head and her guts out.
I can see her lungs and shit.
Yeah, they've got all their guts.
Right, stop it.
Yeah, that one's in D&D.
That's fucking horrible.
Yeah, she strangles you with her intestines.
Okay, cool. No, that's cool.
I remember that one. I don't know. I've never used it before in D&D, but it's there. So I mean, they consider those are vampire-ish too, but
that's dumb. Tighten up your vampire game, Malaysia.
So, anything else we want to add about this? We want to put a bow in.
I mean, we've talked about.
We still have to do. Does
it suck?
Does it suck?
Or does it bite? Or is it somewhere in between?
Did we determine which one's which?
I think sucks. It's the series is called Does It Suck? Suck is like it drinks the blood.
It's good.
So it's good.
Yeah, I think it bites. And so I know I gave it a middle of the road, but like I feel like this movie has just been over. And I know it's one of your favorite movies, and I'm sorry, but
that's okay. You can sit on the couch.
I think we both know that's not going to happen. But
you'll sleep in the baby.
I feel like this is another one of those movies where it's like it's got the Bram Stokers on it, and because Francis Ford Coppola did it, it's like I think a lot of people bow to this movie as the vampire movie of all time. I like Fright Night because I feel like it's closer to what I want to see in vampire movies. Plus, it's kind of silly. This movie doesn't have any silly. There's no room for like any kind of
It's
like.
based off of a book that was written in the 1800s.
Yeah, this is like a romance movie.
Sure, but
it's a romance.
Where's the romance in the movie then? Because it's like people getting dicked by dog vampires.
The tragic romance between Vlad and Mina,
which is literally so. There's not even that romance. Vlad has a wife who threw herself off a cliff. Poor Vlad. But then he's chasing a woman centuries later that just looks like her. It's not really her.
But he sees her and he feels that she is his wife reborn.
Okay.
So he's pursuing her because he feels it's his second chance to be with his wife who died under false pretenses because apparently the Turkish were the originators of fake news.
So let me ask you this, and this is a serious.
I saw an arrow that says your husband was dead.
Well, this is a serious question. Then answer me this: if that's the case, why is it before we got married, my first wife, she was a twin, and she unfortunately passed away. But when I started hitting on her sister, they kicked me out the barbecue. Why wasn't that romantic? I mean, she looked like my wife.
So I'm gonna give that joke
Someone laughed at that shit out there.
0.
Oh, come on. Come on.
So it's romance stories are not romantic. It's from what I've read from romance books, like old school like category romance, they're not romantic.
No,
really,
and keep in mind that this is considered romantic literature, which has romantic tones, but romantic literature isn't the same as romance.
Yeah.
There was a genre of literature that fell under romantic, and it has a lot of the trappings that you see in Bram Stoker's Dracula because it's an example of romantic literature, but it in and of itself isn't necessarily a romance. It's more of a tragedy if you really were to look at it. But the definition of romantic literature would fall under like it meets certain criteria for what was written about it at a particular time. And like during the 1800s, there was the Romanticism era, and there was another one that I can't remember the name of. But they were similar, but if I recall correctly, Dracula would fall under more of a romanticism.
Which,
if I had to give this movie an elevator pitch to somebody, it would be guy stalks girl who kind of looks like an old girlfriend and uses Jedi mind shit on her until she feels guilty enough to like suckle from his boobie.
I mean, it's a very poor kind of 10-second synopsis, but sure.
Yeah, it's a synopsis from a person who did like the movie. That's technically true.
Yeah.
The best kind of technically.
Again, it's not that I don't dislike the movie.
Yeah.
That's not that I don't dislike it. I do dislike it.
The movie is decent. It's when I watched it.
Yeah.
When I watched it back in the theater back in the day, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool because like it was neat.
Yes, it's definitely different.
But watching it now, like it was just.
I think so. On the scale of like, if we're going full on binary, sucks, bites, I'm leaning more towards bites because like when I watch movies, I like want shit to blow up and people to get stabbed and like people to get punched around, and that happens like a very little bit in this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
like not at no point in time does like Dracula like twist a dude's head off and feel like, screw you guys.
But there are gushing fountains of blood with Lucy dies more than a body should be able to contain.
Heads definitely do roll in this particular movie. Well, like and as for if like, does that mean I wouldn't recommend the movie? No, I think it's worth like a watch. I mean, depending on your likes in movies, I think it's got stuff in it for people. This isn't not like, that's why it's like a 5 for me. I like this movie. It's fine. Is it one I'm going to revisit every year? No. But will I watch it again? I'll probably watch it again at some point in time in the future. I just don't know when that may be.
I've seen this movie 3 times. I saw it originally in the theater. Mm-hmm. I watched it with you one time, and then we just watched it just then. Yeah. And I don't know
how many times I've seen it.
I can tell you that my memory served that movie better than the viewing of it tonight, which is like the one thing that spun my head was Joe one time asking me, "Why do you like Transformers?" Because Transformers is great. Okay, cool. You like Transformers because you watched it when you were a kid and you think it's better than what you saw? No, I like it because the animation was cool. Back when I was a kid. And he's like, you sure your tastes haven't evolved? You sure your mind's eye's not telling you it's cool? And I went back and watched the first episode and was like, man, this is trash.
Yeah.
But I can give a shit. They're fucking robots who turn into cars. They're puzzle boxes. They're great.
So, Amber, what about you?
I would say that it sucks because I think it's a great movie. I am a fan of tragic romance. I'm a fan of angst. I do not need a happy ending in my stories, as long as it's a compelling tale. And I like the tragedy that it represents. I love so much about it. If being, a kind of vampire goth girl in my misspent youth, it's one of those things of I enjoy those kind of tales. I feel like they do bring something to the table. I can rewatch it once a month. I won't do that to my husband. He can watch 27 Dresses for the 500th time.
It's fine.
And or better yet, Devil Wears Prada immediately followed by 27 Dresses.
So I think from cultured people are going to like it. Uncultured swine. Maybe
I don't
not
know
so
that
much.
I'm the culture. How did that happen?
You like write books? That's so like cultured. I write stats on a page and make you guys fight stuff.
That's fun.
It is fun.
It is fun.
But that's
Writing is fun too, though. So
But and I'm not a writer.
I've done neither of those.
You don't know. I guess you run games. You don't write stats on a sheet.
Off the top of my head.
20 sounds like it would hit.
Hey, sometimes you got to keep that veneer of like knowing what the fuck is going on. But then we do a combat and y'all realize he has no fucking clue what he's doing.
I know you have no idea what's going on.
I know you have no idea either.
Oh, come on.
But it's still fun.
I
know you know the story.
I've told you before that I believe that you know the beats
yes.
of what you want the story to follow,
and
that you most likely have put this much prep work. That's a big old fat goose egg of like I sat down and worked on this for 5 hours. No, that didn't happen. Did you think about it maybe in passing during the week? Maybe, but for the most part, you kind of just swing it. And
I'll tell you my
formula.
Since y'all are playing cops,
Yep.
I watch Cops, and I go, that's a cool case. And then I do that to y'all. And then when it comes to interacting with people you've interacted with before, I try to remember what kind of attitude they had and if they like you or not. And then I just...
And they all hate us.
Yeah, usually. They all hate me.
No, well,
Yeah.
Nick,
People like me.
to be fair, you have the people that dig you, and then there are people that you're just like, I'm going to bring my vengeance into your face, and it's like, I like you.
I'm a paladin of vengeance. Gotta bring that vengeance. All right, so
It sucks. That's all you need to know.
this movie either sucks or bites, and which one's good, and which one's
Get
bad?
off my boobs.
Watch the movie.
Try to pick this up for the dog finds it needs it.
Get off my boobs. This is all just
I'm really having trouble picking it up.
So can we wrap this one up?
Yeah, let's put a fang in it. I think this one's
Our
done.
longest episode yet.
Yeah, no shit, right? If you made it to the end of this episode, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, bye everybody.
See ya.
Watch more vampire movies.
Oh, the next vampire movie we're gonna do. Did you cut it off yet?